The divine isolation has reached you. This is no coincidence, nor just a simple moment of solitude. It is the painful path you must walk, and it is through this path that you will be shaped for the supernatural awakening that awaits you. You may be feeling the pain of loneliness right now, not understanding why you're being separated from everything you know. But the truth is that every step in this silence brings you closer to your divine purpose. This isolation is not a punishment, it is a preparation. And it is in this process, often arduous, that the greatest secret of your life is about to be revealed. I know you feel it. Maybe you've even asked yourself why everything seems so difficult, why this silence envelops you like a shadow. It is in this pain that you will be transformed, and through it you will discover strengths within you that you didn't even know you had. The painful path of divine isolation is the key to something much greater, something that transcends everything you've ever imagined. Don't give up now. The supernatural awakening is at your doorstep, and only you can open this door. Let's understand together what is preparing you for this unique moment of revelation. Divine isolation doesn't arrive with a fuss or big external signs. It manifests subtly, often without you even realizing that you are being called to something greater. You might be living your routine, believing everything is going as usual, when suddenly you feel a disconnection, a distancing. This is not just a whim of life. It's a profound sign that something is being prepared for you. It may seem like the world around you has become more distant, quieter. Friends, family, even paths that once seemed clear are now foggy. This separation is not a punishment, but a divine strategy to remove distractions so that your mind and soul can focus on what truly matters. Isolation is not just being alone. It's being led to a place where only you and the divine can walk. Together, oftentimes, this calling comes disguised as loss or abandonment. You feel the emptiness and ask, why am I going through this? But it is in this emptiness that God begins to speak louder, where His presence becomes more palpable. What you feel as pain is actually a preparation for the awakening of what has been stored in your soul. God is calling you to a place of silence where He can reveal your true purpose. Each day, the isolation seems to grow, and you find yourself more distant from what once felt familiar. This is when the layers of your ego begin to be peeled away. The pain you feel is a reflection of the internal transformation that is taking place. It's not easy, it's not fast, but it is absolutely necessary. The isolation is preparing you for something much greater than you can see right now. Now the big question is, do you have the courage to follow this path? The divine calling will never be easy to accept, and often it requires you to go beyond what your eyes can see. But remember, isolation is not an end, it is a beginning, and at the end of this path you will find a version of yourself you never thought was possible. The question is, are you ready to take the first step? Pain in its rawest form may be the hardest experience a human being can go through. However, it is the trigger for the deepest transformation. The suffering you are experiencing right now is not an accident. It is the key that God uses to prepare you for the supernatural awakening. Pain never comes without a purpose. What seems like an unbearable burden is, in fact, shaping your soul for something grand. In every tear you shed, in every thought that weighs on your heart, you are being refined. What you consider loss is, in reality, being transformed into gain. The pain that isolates you, that makes you feel vulnerable and weak, is the same pain that creates the perfect conditions for your spiritual growth. There is no evolution without suffering. There is no rebirth without some destruction of the old self. Often, pain makes us question the meaning of life, but it is precisely this questioning that opens the doors to inner truth. Deep down, suffering leads you to a place of brutal honesty with yourself, where you can no longer hide behind the illusions of the world. It is here, in this moment of extreme pain, that you connect more deeply with the divine, realizing that He is with you, even when everything seems to be falling apart. You may feel like you're being broken, but know that it is precisely this. Breaking that creates space for something new. It's not the end, but a new beginning. It is in this process that God begins to reveal parts of yourself that were dormant, showing you the strength that has always been inside you. The pain you feel now will not be in vain. It is preparing the ground for your spiritual rebirth. Now, the real question is, are you willing to embrace this pain, to face it with courage rather than running away from it? Suffering, no matter how difficult, is the springboard for your liberation. Every tear, every wound is evidence that you are being prepared for something much greater. The supernatural awakening that awaits you depends on this painful transformation. Are you ready to surrender to this process? Loneliness can be scary, but it is, in fact, a sacred ground where God works in an intense and transformative way. When you find yourself isolated, with no one's support around you, it's easy to fall into the temptation of despair. But it is precisely in this moment that the purification process begins. God calls you to a space where you can finally hear His voice without the distractions of the world. The emptiness of loneliness is not empty. It is the field where His presence begins to fill everything that once seemed lost. This absolute silence is not a punishment, but a way to clear away the layers that cover your soul. All the insecurities, fears, and uncertainties you've accumulated are brought to the surface so they can be purged. External voices, the influences that shaped your decisions, are silenced so you can finally hear the truth within yourself. Divine isolation is not just to take you away from the world, it is to purify you from the chains that prevent your true growth. When you find yourself in this space of solitude, you may feel defenseless, vulnerable, and even lost. But know that it is precisely at this point that purification intensifies. God begins to mold your soul, removing the excess and preparing you for something greater. It is not easy. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. The emptiness you feel is in fact an open space for the divine to fill. He is removing what no longer serves you to make room for what is truly essential. This process is painful because it requires you to confront parts of yourself you've been avoiding. The shadows, the wounds, the traumas of the past surface strongly, but all of this is part of the purification. By facing them, you gain a deeper understanding of who you truly are and what God is calling you to become. There is no growth without confrontation. There is no enlightenment without crossing through the darkness. Solitude is the perfect place for this transformation to happen. Now you understand that you are not truly alone. Divine isolation is, in fact, an act of proximity to the divine. It is God calling you to Himself. Instead of fleeing from solitude, allow yourself to embrace it. Every second you spend in this empty space is purifying you, preparing you for the supernatural awakening. Are you ready to accept this purification? It is the key to your true transformation. Divine isolation is not just a separation from the outside world, but an invitation to a brutal confrontation with your own self. In the deep silence, away from distractions, you can no longer run from yourself. Fears, insecurities, failures, and hidden desires begin to emerge, and you find yourself facing an internal battle that you've never confronted with such intensity. This is the moment of greatest vulnerability, but also the most crucial for your spiritual transformation. You may wonder why, just now, these negative feelings surface so strongly. What you don't understand is that this confrontation process is one of the greatest gifts you can receive. The pain you feel as you face your own demons is actually an opportunity to overcome them once and for all. Isolation does not abandon you. It prepares you for this fight, where you are the only one who can face and conquer yourself. During this battle, you may feel lost, like you're stuck in an endless cycle of self-criticism and despair. But know that this is part of the purification process. Isolation allows you to face your flaws without the interference of the world, without the masks you use to hide. God is allowing this confrontation so that, in the end, you can be renewed. He doesn't abandon you in the middle of the fight. He empowers you so that you emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for your destiny. Many times, you will think you are not capable of dealing with the intensity of what is being revealed. But every thought, every emotion that arises during this confrontation is an opportunity for freedom. Every time you face a weakness or fear and choose to overcome it, you are closer to the person you were called to be. Do not be deceived. The battle is tough, but it is precisely in the confrontation with yourself that the greatest power of transformation lies. What you don't realize is that by winning these internal battles, you are no longer just fighting for yourself. You are preparing for something much greater. God separates you from the world so you can see yourself as you truly are, without masks, without disguises. And by winning the internal fight, you emerge with supernatural power, ready to be the person you were destined to be. Are you ready to face your deepest self and emerge victorious? In the midst of the darkness of isolation, there is something much greater being prepared to be revealed, the light that comes after the storm. As difficult as it may be to walk through this tunnel of pain and loneliness, know that it is not endless. With every step taken in the darkness, you are being prepared to see beyond what your natural eyes can see. Divine isolation, no matter how heavy and challenging, is shaping your spiritual vision so that you can understand the world in a new, deeper way, connected with the divine. When you are removed from everything, away from the voices of the world, it's as if the veil is being lifted, revealing a truth that was previously hidden. The suffering and solitude, which initially seemed like an unbearable weight, begin to transform into an opportunity for clarity. Through the pain, you begin to notice signs and messages that you had previously overlooked. Your spiritual vision becomes sharper, and what once seemed confusing begins to make sense. God has not left you. He has merely separated you so that you could see His truth more clearly. You may be wondering, when will the light come? What you need to understand is that light is not something that appears suddenly. It starts as a small flame, growing. As you embrace the truth revealed in isolation, every day you spend in this process brings you one step closer to gaining a deeper understanding of who you truly are and what your role in this world is. Isolation is preparing you to see life with new eyes, as if everything you've lived up to this point was merely preparation for this spiritual awakening. The most interesting thing about divine isolation is that, as your spiritual vision expands, you realize that the light does not come from the outside, but from within. By calling you to this process, God is not just removing you from the world, He is teaching you to find the light that already exists inside you. This light is your direct connection with the divine, the truth that has always been within your reach, but that you couldn't see due to the distractions of everyday life. Isolation is the path to awaken this inner light, which, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. Now, the big challenge is, are you ready to accept this new vision? Isolation, with all its pain, prepares you to see the world and yourself in a supernatural way. The end of the tunnel is closer than you think, and with it comes a light that will guide you to your destiny. God has already prepared the path. Now it is time for you to open your eyes and see what He has reserved for you. When everything around you seems to have dissipated, when the world and the people you once knew become distant shadows, you find yourself in the abyss. Silence seems to consume you, and the loneliness once uncomfortable now feels immense. But it is precisely in this abyss that your true strength begins to emerge. God, by placing you in this place of absolute silence, has not left you behind. He is preparing you for something greater than you can comprehend. Silence, far from being an emptiness, is the fertile ground where your inner power begins to bloom. Loneliness may make you doubt your own strength, but what you don't realize is that in the silence, you are being forged. The abyss is the furnace, where the gold of your soul is refined. Every moment of pain and silence is an opportunity for you to discover something new within yourself. You begin to realize that the strength you thought was missing was never actually lost. It was simply waiting to be awakened. Isolation takes you to a place where you meet your purest essence, without the layers of ego or external expectations. This process is profound because as you face the silence, you begin to realize the vastness of your own being. No longer are words or external voices what define who you are. Now you begin to understand that your true identity is not formed by what others see, but by what lies within you. Silence reveals the power that resides in your soul, and it is in this moment that you connect with the divine strength that was given to you. It is not a strength of brute force, but an inner strength, serene and unshakable, capable of moving mountains. As you begin to deepen into this silence, something magical happens. You begin to realize that it is not empty. It is filled with the presence of God, with the wisdom of the universe. And instead of feeling powerless, you become more aware that it is in this emptiness that you gain control over yourself. This silence gives you the clarity necessary to understand that you have everything you need within yourself. What once seemed like a lack now reveals itself as the source of your true strength. The question now is, are you ready to surrender? Add to this process of silence and discover the strength that is waiting to be revealed within you. The abyss, with all its darkness, is actually the field where your true greatness begins to manifest. Every step you take toward divine silence is a step toward the strength that has always been inside of you. Are you ready to connect with this energy? True transformation begins here. The deserted road where you now find yourself is lonely and often painfully solitary. There is no crowd, no applause, only the sound of the wind and the echo of your own soul. But it is in this absolute silence that true strength begins to reveal itself. The solitary path is not a punishment, but a preparation for the greatness to come. While everyone around you seeks the company and comfort of the world, you are being led by God on a path of solitude, where only He can guide you, because only He knows your destiny. The loneliness of the deserted road is, paradoxically, the ground where you meet your true essence. As you distance yourself from distractions and external opinions, you begin to realize that the answers to your greatest questions have always been inside of you. God does not place you on this path to abandon you, but to teach you to trust, not in what the world says, but in what He has already planted in your heart. This solitary path prepares you to hear His voice clearly, without external interference. You may be wondering, why am I alone on this path? The reason is simple. God wants you to discover that His companionship is more powerful than any other. The solitary path is where trust is strengthened, where faith becomes unshakable. There is no way to achieve true spiritual transformation if you continue seeking security in what is fleeting. Isolation teaches you to depend solely on God, to walk with Him, and to trust that He is always present even when you cannot see Him. However, the deepest part of the solitary path is that it transforms you. As you move forward on this deserted road, you leave behind parts of yourself that no longer serve you, the fears and insecurities that once dominated you. And what emerges from this transformation is not a broken person, but someone stronger, more centered, more connected to the divine purpose. The solitary path is the forge where your soul is refined for great spiritual feats. The question now before you is, are you ready to continue on this path, knowing that the solitary road is where true strength is revealed? As you walk alone, you are not merely following an empty path, but building a new spiritual foundation that will allow you to reach unimaginable heights. The silence of the deserted road is the sound of your spirit being shaped for a much greater purpose. Are you ready to move forward and trust this divine process? When you find yourself in divine isolation, it's easy to think you are completely alone, free from the external influences that used to lead you astray. But in this deep silence, the enemy whispers louder. He knows that the moment of greatest vulnerability is silence, where the mind is more open to doubts and temptations. As you walk this painful path, temptations may arise in subtle forms like murmurs that undermine your confidence, trying to convince you that you are taking the wrong path. These whispers can come in many forms: a doubt about the divine promise, a thought that says you are not worthy of the awakening that is about to happen, or even a false sense of relief when you abandon the difficult path of isolation. The temptation does not only come from outside, but from within you, like an internal voice that tries to divert you from the process that is purifying you. This is where the real test begins. Will you give in to the whispers, or will you remain firm in the trust that suffering and solitude are necessary for your growth? The enemy knows exactly where to strike. He knows where your weakness lies, your deepest insecurities. He will try to convince you that isolation is unnecessary, that you deserve something easier, something more immediate. He tries to seduce you with promises of a quick escape, offering shortcuts that, in the end, only lead to the loss of your essence. But what you need to understand is that every thought you let into your mind must be examined carefully. The enemy works in the gaps, in the doubts and fears you have not yet faced. Temptation may seem irresistible, but what you don't see is that it's there to test you. God allows these moments of temptation not to punish you, but to show you how strong you truly are. Every time you choose to remain in isolation, every time you reject the whispers of the enemy, you grow stronger spiritually. It is in this confrontation that you learn to recognize the voice of the divine more clearly, becoming more resistant to the lies that try to divert you from the path. Now the question before you is, will you continue to believe in the divine, a promise, or will you give in to the temptation to seek an easy solution? Temptation in isolation is an opportunity to test your faith and resilience. Every step you take, resisting the influence of the enemy, brings you closer to the supernatural awakening. Are you ready to face the whispers and stay firm on the path that God has laid out for you? The moment arrives, silent but full of power, the divine revelation. After every step taken in solitude, after the internal confrontations, the moments of temptation and purification, you finally begin to perceive something extraordinary. The divine isolation, which initially seemed like an unbearable burden, now reveals itself as the path that led you directly to the truth about who you truly are and what your greater purpose is. Throughout this entire process, God was not abandoning you. He was preparing you for this revelation, for this awakening. This moment of revelation is not as the world expects. It's not a grand ceremony or an outwardly magnificent event. It arises from within, from a deep place in your soul, where the divine truth is whispered to you with clarity and power. You begin to see your life from a new perspective, understanding that everything you've gone through until now, every pain, every separation, every moment of struggle, was essential for you to arrive here at the understanding of your true purpose. Isolation was not a punishment, but a preparation for you to be ready for this divine revelation. You may have felt lost, unsure of where you were going, but now everything starts to make sense. What once seemed confusing now becomes clear. What seemed like an endless road is now a path illuminated, revealing the truth about your mission on earth. The purpose that was hidden within you begins to manifest, and you understand, with supernatural clarity, what God has planned for your life. Isolation prepared you for this moment, where you can finally see the magnitude of what awaits you. As this revelation unfolds, you feel an immense peace. The emptiness of solitude is now filled with the knowledge of your divine purpose. No longer is there a question of, "What am I doing here?" or "What's the meaning of all this?" The answer comes with force and light. You have a greater purpose, something that transcends the limitations of the world and that only you can fulfill. Divine isolation is not the end of the road, but the beginning of an even deeper journey, one that now makes perfect sense. Now the crucial question arises: are you ready to embrace and fully live out your purpose? The divine revelation you have experienced is just the beginning. You have been prepared for something great, something supernatural, and from now on, it's your responsibility to follow this call. Isolation brought you here, but now it's time to walk with courage and faith, knowing exactly what awaits you. The spiritual awakening is real, and you are about to live your greater purpose. The painful journey of divine isolation now reaches its apex, where true spiritual transformation begins to take shape before your eyes. Just like the seed that is buried in the earth and, through the darkness and suffocation of the soil, grows to reach the light, you, having gone through this process of purification and solitude, are about to experience your own spiritual resurrection. Isolation was not an end, but the preparation for something new to emerge within you, something stronger, more conscious, and deeply connected with divine truth. At this moment, you may feel that the weight of pain and suffering is finally diminishing, but what you don't see is that this pain was essential for your growth. Just as gold is refined by fire, you have been shaped and purified by the adversities of isolation. Now the scars that once represented painful wounds transform into symbols of victory, of overcoming, and of a new being that is about to be revealed. This is the spiritual resurrection, not a return to what you were, but an ascent to something new, something greater. You now find yourself at a point of transition where the person who entered this process of isolation is no longer the same one who exits it. Every step taken in solitude, every tear shed, every thought faced, has guided you to this deep transformation. It is no longer about surviving the pain, but embracing the new version of yourself that emerges from it. Spiritual resurrection is the union of your soul with a new purpose, with a new vision of who you are and what you have been called to do in this world. The great transformation doesn't happen in a single moment. It is gradual but continuous. Divine isolation, with all its pain and suffering, prepared you for a supernatural awakening where you are now capable of seeing and living in a way you never imagined before. This resurrection is not something you just observe from the outside. You experience it, feel its energy, and begin to live according to it. You are no longer just living the life others imposed on you, but you are starting to walk in the purpose that God always planned for you. The question that arises now before you is, are you willing to live this transformation? Are you ready to accept the power that God has placed inside you and live your life according to this spiritual awakening? Isolation prepared you for this moment, and now the true journey begins. It is not the end of pain, but the beginning of a new life. A fuller life with a divine purpose in every step. Spiritual resurrection is not just about what you've lived, but about everything you are about to conquer by living the truth that has now been revealed to you. We have come to the end of this journey, but know that in truth, it is only just beginning. Divine isolation has prepared you for the supernatural awakening that you are now ready to live. Every challenge faced, every moment of solitude, every pain experienced has brought you to this point of revelation. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. You have been transformed, purified, and now, more than ever, you have the vision and strength to live the divine purpose that God has placed in your life. This is not the end of a struggle, but the beginning of a new era for you. Spiritual resurrection is not something that happens just once, but it is a continuous transformation, a process of constant renewal. Now, you hold in your hands the key to living a full life, connected to divine truth, guided by the purpose that has been revealed to you. The question now is no longer what to do with the pain or why am I going through this, but rather, how will I live this truth now? I invite you to look at your life with new eyes. Do not let fear or doubt stop you from moving forward. The path of transformation may be challenging, but it is in it that true power lies. God did not call you to a life of mediocrity, but to a grand journey full of purpose, strength, and clarity. The supernatural awakening you have experienced so far is just the beginning of something even more extraordinary. Now I challenge you. Live this transformation. Walk with confidence and courage, knowing that throughout this journey, God has never left you. He is with you every step of the way, guiding, shaping, and preparing you for a much greater destiny. What you have lived until now was necessary for you to be ready for what is to come. The spiritual awakening is real, and you are now the manifestation of an incomparable divine purpose. Are you ready to live this truth with all your strength?